Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. I shared a story over on Instagram and it was a 5-minute card. Well, we're going to take that simple card, which you just saw, and we're going to step it up in two different ways. So for the first card, we're going to be adding texture. I'm keeping the same color palette, even using the same stamps, and also coloring my image the exact same way. For our first setup card, the big difference is going to be I'm going to heat emboss the background instead of using patterned paper, and I'm also throwing in an embossing folder. Embossing folders have become super popular again, and I have tons of them that have just been set in here, and some of them are unbranded that I bought at like AC Moore years ago. Some were at the discount bin from like Tuesday morning and that kind of thing. I've had them for a really long time and I'm going to use them. I love embossing folders and the textures that they create. I also love Polkadots, so I'm going to create the background using embossing powder and green cardstock, and I'm using the Concord 9th Polkadot Turnabout stamp set. And I managed to get this off for somehow, some reason, some way, because I did it the exact same way the second time and it turned out perfect. However, for this card, even the polka dot background being off a little bit was still super stinking cute. So we're going to stick with this, and even though my background's a little off, I'm still going to white heat emboss this, and it is still stinking cute. Stamp and die set that I'm using from My Favorite Things is Saddle Up and Celebrate, and it has the cowboy images and a cactus and like a little birthday cake with a hat on, a cowboy hat on. So adorable. I'm also going to add another image from that stamp set on the second card. I'm using Ulta Pure White Crisp Embossing Powder. It is a little bit thicker granules, so I get better coverage for these solid images such as these polka dots in the background. And watching embossing powder melt is still one of my favorite things ever. Now for first card, that was the 5-minute card over on my Instagram story, we used pattern paper for our background, and here we did white heat embossing for our polka dots. I also just stamped the sentiment in black ink on the first card. I did pop it up, however, for this one we're going to go ahead and make it just a shade longer on the cardstock, and we're also going to black heat emboss that on that white cardstock. Just make it a little bit more, got a little shine to it, and we're also going to pop this up. I am going to adjust the layout on these two cards just a shade, give it a little bit more polished look. Now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to play a little bit of music just while I color our little cactus friend here. Also, all of the colors that I'm using today are linked below in the description. We're going to finish coloring our little cactus dude here. And I have the coloring video close up is over on my Instagram story because I colored this guy the same way for all 3 cards. Instead of cutting him out of a circle, we're going to die cut him using his coordinating die. And I just use a little piece of washi tape to hold that die in place when I'm running it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Next, we're going to go ahead and die cut our circle because I am keeping that circle and the black chain around that circle. And I'm going to die cut the circle first, and then I'm going to run my circle through an embossing folder. One thing that I have trouble with personally is figuring out which sandwich I need to use to run an embossing folder through my machine. Embossing folders come in so many different thicknesses now because you have the 3D embossing folders. You have some that will actually cut as you're doing the embossing itself. So I have to kind of experiment when I'm running through an embossing folder through my machine. And I ended up, instead of using the regular sandwich, I had to use the purple embossing plate that goes with the Spellbinders machine to make sure that it worked and got a good impression on my circle there. Now I'm die cutting the chain here. Unfortunately, this die is no longer available from My Favorite Things. You might be able to find somebody selling it from a personal stash or something. It's just no longer available, but you can probably find something pretty similar to it. I've had it in my stash for a really long time, and one thing that I'm trying to do this year is actually use what I have in my stash. I've said that in years past and haven't done it, but I think sometimes when we are YouTube creators or Instagram creators or something like that, that we feel like that we have to use current products all the time, and that becomes exceedingly expensive. And for the average crafter that's trying to learn something new, it's absolutely and totally unrealistic because you're not going to run out and buy new stamps and new dies. Okay, so that's what we really want to do, and I totally understand that, but it's totally unrealistic for most people to be able to go out and get all the new releases of all the things. So I'm really trying to promote this year that you use what you have, and so I'm demonstrating that. The embossing folder and the chain here are, I think the embossing folder is something from Stampin' Up! From years ago that I had when I first started making cards. So I encourage you to use what you have in your stash. I have a post over on my blog about inventorying your stash using a free piece of software called Evernote, and I have my process over there, and you can take a look at it. I will link to it on the blog post for this card, and you'll be able to see how I put together an inventory for my stamps and dies and embossing folders and even my inks. It's a mobile app as well, so you are, if you're shopping, you know, at the local craft store, you can scroll through and see if you actually have it. You can search for it, see if you actually have what you're looking at. I have bought duplicates so many times. So this year is the year of use what you have. Yes, I'm going to buy stuff. I'm definitely going to buy stuff. But I'm going to be more cautious and more aware of what I actually have in my stash as well. So next we are going to go ahead and start on our second card. I'm creating a little sky scene behind our cactus dude, and I'm going to do ink blending for that. And I didn't want to ink blend an entire panel because I'm just going to use the circle, so I traced the outside edge of the circle die that I'm using to create that background. The cutting edge for that die is on the inside, so the outside gives me a bigger circumference and it won't show up. I won't run the risk of having that pencil line behind that ink there. I am using Distress Oxide ink and Tumbled glass and broken china to create that sky. The cactus background and the sentiment are exactly the same, so I did that off camera. I am adding the little wagon wheel from the stamp set as well, and I colored that. And now we're going to go ahead and put everything together for this card. I'm going to die cut the grass, and then I'm going to die cut it out of the circle. That way I get exactly how much I need and where I want it on my circle. So I have everything all put together here. I have all of my elements in place, and I'm going to go ahead and pop on my sentiment. And when I did this, I said my card still looked a little empty. So I added a little cloud and overhang the chain in the edge of the circle. I thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget that if you want to see the 5-minute card, head over to my Instagram, because that's the only place that it's available. It will be in my highlights over on my profile there. All the products that I used are linked below, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss a single card. Here's all 3, and added a little touch of polka dots. Gotta love the polka dots. Y'all have an amazing day.